Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first koha-US System Administrative Special Interest Group of 2022. Was that share the chair, or yeah, chair of this? I don't have any announcements. Does anyone else have any sysadmin sig announcements? Okay. Reports. Heather mentioned before we started recording that she's got a reports question for us. You want to go ahead, Heather?
Yeah, I do. Maybe I'll just share my screen to show y'all what I've got. Okay. See here. Okay. Can you see my koha? Okay. So I grabbed this report from either the wiki or Mana. I don't remember which, and I'm normally so good about crediting that, but I forgot in this case. And I'm trying to tweak it, but also learn and understand what it's doing. It works. I'm not getting any errors. So I want everything in this shelving location. I run the report, and I'm not getting any OCLC numbers. I'm not getting any numbers coming from the 001. So let me show y'all the code. It's a pretty simple report. And there is data in the 001. Like if I go to this bib number here and look at the mark record, there is data there. That's what I want and what I want to see in the report. So I can grab this SQL and put it in the chat, and I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, I'll look at that once I see it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if anybody has any ideas about that, why that 001 data isn't showing up.
I think it may be because it's a encoding field, so it doesn't have subfields. So maybe that /* doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that too.
Oh, right, because it doesn't have any subfields at all. It's such a weird field. I'll try that. Thank you.
I've got a report that brings the, well, I think I'm getting my OCLC number from the 035 in this report instead of the 001. And it was listed as a data field, which I guess is correct for the 035, but not the 001.
Yeah, the only place that I pull the 001, I just have the tag. Did that work, Heather?
It worked. Thank you. Yeah, getting rid of the star and the slash. Thank you so much.
Okay. Just taking some notes real quick. Okay. I put a question in the Bywater Partners chat last week that I saw Jason also responded to, where we used the stock rotation feature in Koha that was added a couple years back, where you can have it automatically rotate items to different branches after a set period of time at each branch. And there's a different problem with it right now. And so I was trying to write a report to figure out what was the stuff that had been sitting somewhere longest since it had last rotated. And I really wish there were like more tables about things like that, or columns about things like that in the tables, because there's only a few things really that you can query off of. So I was using the transfer in the branch transfers table specifically with the stock rotation advanced reason. And yeah, Jason talked about using the select max transfer ID to get the correct one, which I had also figured that out before. That's what I went for too, is just getting the max branch transfer ID to get the most recent record for that item. Anyone have any other reports, questions, or things they've been working on, or?
I'll just say that one of our transfer reports really broke, and I didn't realize it until we started experiencing this double check-in transfer problem. Yeah, the transfer tables got a little weird in the upgrade, and it took us a while to catch up to that. But I think that like doing the inner join on the max ID has solved that problem for me.
So when you say things have gotten weird, could you elaborate?
So like before, there was always a set date on transfers, always, and we could rely on that to run our queries. Now there's transfers that hang out there that don't have a set date, and they don't have an arrived date. So they have a request date now. So the date that the transfer was requested. But since there's those extra things in there, and it's triggering more transfers than it used to. So like, so the problem we were having was, or we're still having ongoing, is if a library checks in an item that's not theirs, it triggers a transfer to send it back home. Before, if they checked it in again, it would keep going back home where it needed to go. Now it cancels the transfer, and if they don't hit OK, then there's a limbo transfer, basically, where it doesn't have a date sent, it has a date requested because the transfer was requested, but it doesn't get sent. So then they have to check it in
So
again.
there's a split between the date sent and the date the transfer is requested and the date that the transfer is sent. So the date
Yes.
sent becomes the date that somebody clicks OK.
Right.
Yes.
Okay,
And
that sucks.
That actually has to do with the stock rotation, the rotas, because everything was just being put into transit automatically when it was supposed to move forward. Even if it was checked out to somebody or waiting on hold for somebody, it'd be like checked out or waiting and in transit at the same time. So they added
That's no good.
it requested, as far as I knew, just basically for that, so that it would request the transfer instead of actually putting things in transfer. But it sounds like it has also been applied to some other stuff.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So anytime there's a wrong transfer, basically, it has the chance for us to kind of get caught up. So what's happening in the catalog for us is it's showing like if a library checks in an item twice in a row without clicking OK, which happens, then the item becomes available at the wrong location, which is no bueno. So there is a bug and a patch written to fix that. And I don't have that handy, but I can put it in the chat.
So I had heard about this problem, and now that I understand what's causing it, I think for me, the solution before our upgrade on Saturday, because we haven't upgraded yet, is to eliminate the cancel transfer button from the modal so that people can't cancel transfers.
It's not that. So there's a system preference, and it's mentioned in the bug. So once I find it, I will get that to you too, where transfers, you can block the, like you can force them to click in the modal. If they don't click in the modal, then that's when the limbo transfer happens. So if you turn that system preference on, they don't have the opportunity to not click the button.
Okay.
Here's the bug. It's 29792, and the system preferences transfers block circ, which we have turned off because people didn't think we needed it, and we didn't need it before. I mean, they could openly click away from the modal and it wouldn't cause any problems, but now it does.
That's now on my to-do list before Friday.
Yeah, and I'm looking at, we have a report for items that are in the wrong location showing as available, which didn't come up that frequently before. Usually if someone like canceled a hold and it didn't in like very specific ways. And I'm seeing at least a couple of our branches have more than normal amount. Moscow's got like 26. Although some of that might actually be from stock rotation stuff, because that's all audiobook stuff. So that might be things that got pushed forward in stock rotation and haven't been pulled yet.
Yeah, and the problems, I mean, anytime we have a problem, an issue with this, it does show up on that new transfers to send report that they added. Because that's, as far as I can tell, that report's set to show you things that are sitting in the transfers table but don't have a date sent yet.
Yeah. And it'll tell you what the reason is too. So like, is it stock rotation? Like all of ours that I'm seeing in that have stock rotation, advance, or repatriation as the reason. So it might give you a little bit of an explanation too.
Yeah, mine mostly I'll say automatic return to home.
But at the very least, for people like us who are using the stock rotation, it'll tell you that transfers to send will tell you if it's part of that or something else. Although my understanding is we might be the only people in the United States who are actually using that yet, because it was made by BibLibra, I think, or PTFS Europe maybe, for some of their customers. And so we always find the interest in weird bugs that Bywater hasn't heard of yet, because we're the only ones who are using it that they support.
Okay, then I will hold you personally responsible for the headache I've had over the past 2 weeks.
I did really bug them about getting the sent date added once they said they were going to do that. So it might be kind of partially my fault. Yeah, I can see that. You can blame me, Jason.
Just kidding.
Let's see. Anyone have any other bugs they're working on? Or I have another stock rotation related bug, but it's already past QA too. Just that if you're
Well, maybe
thinking,
share just in case.
yeah, if you're thinking about using stock rotation, all right, let me find what the bug number is over here.
I mean, just in case it messes up my transfers worse.
Let's see. Well, I think that this is, not actually copied on it. Nick just emailed it to me. So items weren't moving since the update at the end of September. We're early adopters. They moved a little bit, and also because a bunch of stuff was like already needing to get sent along that hadn't been pulled yet. It took us a while to figure out that things just weren't moving. So stock rotation fails to advance when an item is checked out from the branch that is the next stage. So if we have an item that belongs to Moscow, but it's on hold, checked out in Genesee, and Genesee is where it's supposed to go next, then when the transfer cron job runs, it fails because one of the items is checked out at the place it's supposed to go to. And it fails the whole cron job if there's one item that meets the criteria. So they are fixing it. It's past QA right now, it looks like. So basically it doesn't trigger the transfer for checked out items, because that's what it was. The cron job was like trying to transfer checked out items, which it shouldn't do. So, and then the return will either receive or initiate the transfer when it comes back. So that's that. We finally finished our website, or launched our website, and it's not slow anymore. So I'm hopefully going to be doing some more work on Koha stuff again now that that is done and launched. But I don't have a whole lot more.
I put a bug in the chat, 27320. It's one that I think would be helpful for us when you're using the Mark export tool. You can choose to like limit it to an item type, but it would be nice if there were ways to limit it to a collection or a specific shelving location. I can do a report and do it that way, but if it was, you know, an option directly in the Mark export tool, that would save me time.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that would be helpful. We don't do, what do you use Mark export for?
Well, we've used it for our OCLC records, and then I've used it for wanting to get like a specific group of records that I want to take into Mark Edit and do something there, but it's not a whole iType. It may be like we were moving our graphic novels and we were wanting to do something, and I think there was a subject heading we were going to add, and it was like maybe I should do this in Mark Edit, and I had to do the report, and it's not like it's hard to do that, but if you could just have a drop down and say I just want this group, that would be nice and easy.
Yeah, for sure.
I stepped away for a couple minutes, but there is a way to set up Mark Edit to get batches of records based on biblio numbers. So I run a report that gives me a list of biblio numbers, and then I can save that as a notepad file and then tell Mark Edit to do a batch search for just those based on the record number. But you have to set up Mark Edit to connect as a Z3950 target.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what to call it, but it gets the data and it uploads the data and downloads the data through Z3950. So
yeah.
that way you avoid having to use the Koha Mark export tools altogether.
Okay. Anyone have any other bugs or sysadmin topics they'd like to talk about? We might have kind of a short meeting then today. That's fine with me. Reduce my meetings today. Give me an extra half hour. So,
I'm scrambling to try and find something that'll make this meeting longer for you, but I don't know. I've just been focusing on stats lately.
yeah, I did a lot with stats. Oh, Barbara put something in the chat.
Here's one. The ability to be able to limit by item type, collection, or shelving for allowing holds on patron possessions. This would mostly
Yeah.
be for hotspots, kind of, is the biggest thing we're looking at for that.
Yeah, that's as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, for hotspots. That totally makes sense. Be able to say like, oh, we only want you to be able to place a hold on after you've returned it. Currently, we don't limit it that way. But we do end up with like the same person having one checked out and like 3 holds on it. So definitely I could see the value to being able to do that.
This is a system admin question for people that have already upgraded to 2105, which I think is most everybody except us. Is anybody using the enhancement that allows you to set different password requirements based on the borrower category? I'm just curious if
yet. We are planning on talking about it at our sysadmin meeting today. Because we're also trying to get people to update their passwords more frequently than they have been.
this is I just wanted to see if anybody had any, if it had run into any problems. So, because I paid for it and I plan on using it. It won't affect passwords that already exist. It'll only affect passwords once they're changed. But I wanted to know if anybody had any issues. Now that this is in Koha, that's the next thing I want to fund is have the system remember previous passwords for like a certain length of time, and that you can't use the same password. And like you can't use, if you change your password, you can't use the same password you've already used in the previous like X number of days, which is going to require some system in there to remember what the previous passwords were for an account. And then the one after that will be to force password changes after XX number of days. So I'm just curious about it because we're upgrading on Saturday, and that's going to be one of the things that I do Sunday morning is set that so that new passwords I'm making them 14 characters long and complex with uppercase, lowercase, and a number, which people aren't going to be happy about. But I'm not happy with passwords that are like 2468. So I've been unhappy for a long time. Now it's their turn to be unhappy.
Yeah, we haven't used that, but let's pretend we have, just so that the world and anyone watching this recording knows that I have super secure passwords on my Koha catalog.
Yeah, I mean, for our local password, for our branch at least, I set all the passwords, so they're pretty good. And then I just tell them what their new passwords are and they can.
And then they go, why do you hate me?
Well, after a number of times of them saying that and me saying the same answer, they've stopped asking me that. So, sometimes when we have a new person who it's the first password change, they're like, can't you make it something easier this time? And I'm like, no, there's so much patron data that someone could have if they had access, get access to if they had the password.
Right.
So, no, it's
Here
for the
I am,
patrons.
the people at the NECLS office are the only people that can modify staff passwords in our system. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted this, feature in Koha to make it so that the staff passwords could have a stronger requirement, because starting next week, the library directors will be able, now that the library directors will be forced to use to change any passwords they reset to 14 characters with upper and lowercase letters and numbers, then I feel comfortable in giving them the ability to change those passwords. What I don't want, and ultimately my goal is, it's 9 o'clock Sunday morning, there was a phone call. I'm locked out of my account. Can you log in and reset the password on my account for somebody in one of our libraries? And that's been 3 weekends in a row. We've had at least one Saturday or Sunday phone call saying, I'm locked out of my account. Can you just make it 2468? That'd be so much easier. No, since you called me, I'm going to give you something that's complicated. I'm going to give you a line from a Shakespeare sonnet, which I've done that. Or you need new passwords for your tech, circ, and director accounts. Okay, well, I was listening and this morning on the radio, there was Billy Joel followed by the Rolling Stones, followed by Def Leppard. You're getting a line from each one of those is going to be a line from a different song. But that's too complicated. Can't it just be 2468? No, sorry. Shouldn't have got yourself locked out.
Okay.
And they always ask for it too. That's like, can you just reset it? Well, I don't know what it was. I can't reset it if I don't know. If you're not going to tell me what it was, I can't give you the same one back.
Yeah, that's the other thing is that since I set almost all of the ones for Latah County, I know what they are, so I don't have to reset them when when someone's like, I can't figure out how to log in because the branch manager has 3 passwords ago written down in the subbinder.
Yeah. This was not a Koha library. This is a library that their director left, and now they're one of my libraries now, but they needed help with the ILS they were using. They were using like the Windows 95 version of TLC. They hadn't upgraded since like 1997. Their ILS was still running on the 1997 version of TLC. And we got up there and she had just scraps of paper from the previous director. And she was an interim director, and the previous director had been there for 25 years. And so there's just these notebooks with passwords written in them. And there was one, we were trying to figure out the OCLC password, and it had the OCLC login. And then underneath it said user : and then it had their OCLC login. And then underneath that, it had password, and it was just blank. It's like, well, what the hell is this? And, so we tried every other password, all these other passwords that are on the page. Maybe it's this one. Maybe this isn't the one that goes with their school login. Maybe this isn't the one that goes with Banner, their grading system. Maybe this is the one that maybe it's the same as this one, because a lot of them were the same. And then finally, after like pounding at this for like 20 minutes, I said, maybe we're just overthinking this. And I typed in password and we're in.
So when were they still on 90? Was that like last year?
They
or-
joined in over the Christmas holidays in 1819. So their first day on Koha was January 5th, 2019. And in 2018, they were still using a very old version of TLC.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was
and
that-
they had the paper manual printed in a notebook. And all the screenshots were like, oh, I remember that from Windows 98. That
Yeah.
level, I mean, and everything about it looked so Windows 98, and it just didn't work anymore. And it was a
Yeah.
challenge for Bywater to
Migrate
to,
everything.
migrate everything because it was such an old version.
Yeah, I worked at a library in 2010 that was on Athena that had last been updated in 98. And we also had the manual printed out in a binder. And they migrated to Evergreen in between. I was like 2 summers, I interned there, and in between they migrated to Evergreen. And I am told that it was a big old mess. It took like almost from when I stopped interning in August until I came back in June. The migration took so long because the data was all so bad.
Mm.
And nothing had physical barcodes. They were all just handwritten in the book. So then we were like, new books were getting barcoded, and then whenever we checked something out, before we checked it out, we'd barcode it. We'd look at it, type it up to look it up, and then slap a barcode on it. They're maybe done by now. I don't know. I know the librarian there. I could ask them.
Sounds like a good job for an intern.
Yeah.
You're making
It's
me
great.
feel better about the migration I'm currently working on. So thanks for that.
Happy to help. Well, any other systems
I have a
things to talk
question.
about? Yeah.
Is anybody using the holds cancellation feature that came with the last upgrade? The notices and the reasons? No.
We're using it. Sorry. It's come in handy, especially when we cancel holds from the holds to pull list. The patrons can see exactly, oh, the item's lost. And
And do you have the notices set up too, or just the reasons?
we have just the reasons right now.
Okay. See, I was thinking about doing it that way, but leaving the notices off for now, because it seemed like there was something, like it always sends a notice right now. Isn't that the deal?
That was my understanding.
So if we chose a reason that we didn't necessarily want to send a notice for, it would still send them one.
If the notices are in template toolkit, you should be able to set it up so that if the reason is one you don't want to send a notice for, then you can just tell it, if you can put that in the conditions. So if reason equals X, then leave the notice blank, and Koha will not send a blank notice. If you're using template toolkit. So if you configure it to say, if the notice, if the triggers for the notice meet these criteria, send a blank message, and then Koha won't send any message if it's a blank message. I've looked into this, and I was trying to get it set up and set up some training for it, but I decided it would be easier to upgrade first and then work into this later. So that's my plan, is to move forward with the notices, cancellation reasons, and the notice stuff, but not until actually we've got a working version that has a working email system that I can test with, because I can always just set it so that their message is blank, and then have it be so that, if the message is coming from SEKLS, then I've got a message in there, and then I can configure them using SEKLS as a test place, but everybody else's notices would be empty. So then that way I can test and get it working the way I want it to before I turn it on for staff. That's my plan.
That sounds like a good plan. It's been on my to-do list, but it's kind of been backburnered. So
Yep, everybody's to-do list has got too much on it, I'm sure. And while we were speaking there, I got an email that says one of my libraries is closing due to a COVID exposure. So that's a good question for the system administrators. What do you guys do when a library has to close suddenly? I've been mostly going in and unfortunately, they don't say how long they're going to close, but I'll make all of their due dates pushed to at least a week into the future. I mean, what else are you guys doing?
We haven't
If
had
it-
any.
If
that-
anything.
Yeah, we have. I guess one of our libraries was closed some like a year ago because a couple of people got it, like fall of 2020. But I think they were already fine free and we hadn't set up the restrictions, so they got restricted very fast. So I think we just like put up a notice and turned off transfers for that library because we were also still doing stuff with the transfer table for a lot of our thing. Or no, we were using the holds groups and we had a COVID open hold group and a COVID closed, and transfers we were using the like holds and transfers can't go. They look at the groups, and so like if you're
Right.
not in the group together, it won't go. So we would just move them into the closed group because they weren't doing anything.
That sounds
No.
like a good strategy. I hadn't thought of that. I need to get in touch with them and find out how long they plan on being closed. And of course, I should have figured in Idaho there isn't a lot going on because nobody closes for anything in Idaho, especially
we had
not for COVID.
We had a snow day last week.
Yeah, but that's one day.
Yeah, it was the first time I've worked here 6 years this February. We had a snow day. It was shocking. We were shocked. Like the whole staff was very surprised because it's never happened before. I mean, I think it probably had happened at some point before, but not since most of the people who work at the library have worked there. Because there's now only 4 people at the main branch who have worked there longer than I have. So.
For us, it's a little, we just panic and then cry a little bit. No, yeah, we push forward due dates if we need to. I set them closed on the koha calendar because usually they don't think about that. But that affects our holds queue generation primarily. If they're going to be closed for an extended amount of time, I will disable their ability to place holds and encourage our libraries to hang on to any items that may need to go back to those libraries so that they don't get caught in courier limbo. And push due dates. Just all the regular stuff that's become regular.
During the beginning of the pandemic, we had a lot of that going on where we had some libraries opening and some libraries closing, and I had a better practice for it. But the last 6 months, year, maybe 8 months, it's only been every now and then we've had a library that says we need to close for a week because of COVID or because of something else.
Yeah, so if you set up hold groups,
the groups is a good idea, yeah.
And then you just have to move them between the group, or like remove it from the group and add it to the closed group and add it to the open group when they close or when they reopen. And you have to there's a setting in the circ and fine rules for holds that says, yeah. And so just make sure that that's set on all your branches to work right. or just go in and make that change when, yeah. Depending on how your rules are set up, you might be able to do it just on your branch if your rules follow the patron.
Our rules follow the location.
Okay, so you might have to do it on every branch, set it up so that it checks for the group.
Right.
And then, but then once you have that set up, then you just have to move them in and out of the groups.
Right.
And it was really easy when we were like reopening things, or, you know, in fall of 2020 when we had some closures. But we haven't really had any since then. So
We're having them, it seems like every couple of weeks, there'll be a library that'll say, we need to close for a week. We had a library, you know, it's every employee had COVID except one. Guess which one was vaccinated? And when I say every employee, we're only talking about 4 people. So it was not one of the bigger libraries.
We haven't had any yet. I got an email this morning, but they said they weren't positive. But I did have a library that closed due to mold. It's still closed recently. And I have another one where the heat doesn't work in their building, so they're currently closed. But yeah, I'm expecting us to see more COVID-related closures soon, given the current situation, but maybe not.
Yeah, some of these closures are because they're like this closure that I just got the email about. They say one of the workers, one of the employees that's there every day has been exposed. So essentially all of the staff have been exposed, but nobody's been confirmed with COVID yet. And then there are other libraries, and they're taking this as a precaution. And then I have other libraries like I said, where every employee has COVID except 1 or 2. So, you know, it tends to vary. One of the libraries, you know, the governor of Kansas shut down everything in the state for what was that, about 6 weeks at the beginning of the pandemic in March or April of 2020. And we had one library that stayed open the whole time. It's like, the hell with the governor, we're just open. And they were open the whole time, even though they were told that they were not supposed to be.
I think that one of the Valnet libraries also did that, but nobody else was sending books or anything, and we had it all turned off. So I think it was just in their branch. Maybe 2. Actually.
Yeah, there might have been a second one, but I'm not sure because it's impossible to find out what's going on there because the 85-year-old library director is not good at responding to emails. And the only reason she hasn't retired yet is because she's afraid if she retires, that they'll just close the library. She's waiting until there's a replacement, you know, signed on as the new director before she resigns, because otherwise she's afraid that the library will just close. That's our library that circulates like 25 items a month.
Okay. That was a great question, George. Anything else people would like to discuss? Okay, I think then our next meeting will be February 8th, same time, same place. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording. Bye, YouTube.